I would just like to say welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're excited to have John Jerkowitz here to share with us about self-love and other topics. Or I'll say, I love the picture here. Give your healing love to someone who needs it today. It's the most precious gift you can give. And I think that that might be an indication of some of the beautiful things that we're going to learn from John tonight. And once John is done with his presentation, it'd be nice if we have an open sort of a roundtable discussion of how we can apply these things in our lives. So I'll go ahead and turn this over to Linda so she can give John a proper introduction.
Okay, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Good, okay. Well, one of the great perks that I have for being a teacher for so many years here is I get to make so many friends. And John was in my class and another spiritual class that we have, and so we've known each other for quite a long time. So it's always great when I can introduce a really good friend, someone who is like-minded and loves helping people. And I'm just so glad that you're here, John, to enlighten us. And let me see, just talk about your bio a little bit. You have 40 years experience in operations, human resource management, including 15 years as a certified career and executive coach. And you are the president of Jerkowitz Consulting. So now I'm going to give it to you, John. Thank you.
You're welcome, Linda, and I just want to echo what you said. It's kind of interesting. The other day I was sitting and preparing for this, and during the course of my career since I've known Linda, she's one of the first 3 or 4 people I always email when I hit a highlight in my life or my career. And I think there's a certain synchronicity you develop with people and with groups of people. And that's one of the things I'm going to encourage you to do this evening. When Linda contacted me a couple months ago and asked me to spend some time with you guys this evening, I started to think back to the first day virtually that I walked into Linda's class to be certified as a life coach, and I'll never forget my initial feeling. My initial feeling was that I had come home. I was with a group of people who were like-minded, who thought the way I did, and who supported me as I supported them. I'm going to talk to you kind of about 3 things this evening. And I guess I'm going to start with the third one because that's where I left off, and it's you are who you hang around with. Now, when Linda introduced me, she said, you know, I've got 40 years experience. That's hard to do in 30 years of life. No, that's just a joke. But one of the things I noticed and successful were the people who had a positive, uplifting network around them. Now, I grew up in the traditional business community, and I was kind of always like a bit of a black sheep in that area because long before we talked about a lot of the things that many of us take for granted and have become second nature in our lives, those were the things I was searching for and convinced that you could take into the workplace to help people become successful. And what I want to define for you to begin with is I don't look at success as being the CEO of a company or having a big bag of money to sit on. I think everybody looks at success in their lives, and then they start to chart a course to reach there. But again, I think one of the most important things is who do you spend time with? If you spend time with people who always seem to have a negative attitude about life, you're going to be right there with them. And negativity is kind of like high blood pressure. It's insidious. You don't wake up one morning and go, oh my God, I got high blood pressure. Right? It creeps up on you, and so does negativity. Being positive is hard work. I'll tell you, let me pull out my metaphorical soapbox and get up on it for just a few seconds. I chafe a lot at people when I listen to them speak or read articles or books who talk about, well, it's just simple, you just be positive. You kind of look at the environment around us, and I'm saying going outside the environment you're able to control. We run into a lot of negativity. I no longer watch the news simply because, I mean, my kids, they're all grown. My kids got to tell me what's going on in the world. It's kind of like, you didn't hear about that? But I won't watch that, and anymore. I won't watch sports. I guess I need to have my own TV show so I can watch myself. But it's one of those situations where being positive is extremely difficult work. And that's why the second thing I really believe is that you're worth all the effort you invest in yourself, and don't ever let anybody tell you any differently. One of the things we fight in our journey towards living a positive, successful, balanced life is the fact that we have people around us, I know I do, going, what do you want to do that for? Mm-hmm. Or, well, nobody does that. Why are you investing all your effort? Go get a degree in accounting. At least you'll have a stable job. Yeah, but the problem is I can't add a column of numbers, so I wouldn't have a stable job. And I've seen so many people throughout my life and throughout my career that have been poised to make that investment in themselves, only to have somebody or a group of somebodies just tell them, hey, it's not going to work. And I want to share a story with you, and this was really another case of synchronicity, because a couple days ago I had a young lady call me and say, hey, I got your name from a friend of a friend of a friend. Can I come in and talk to you? I'm having some real struggles here, and I need an objective third party. And she was getting ready to interview for a job she had always wanted. And the job was in an area where she had a great deal of passion and interest, and I could just tell when she was talking about it, her face just lit up. I said, so what's the problem? Okay. She said, well, let me tell you what happened 10 years ago. And I said, well, what happened? And she said, I took a job. I was 20 years old. She said, I was in college. They convinced me to be a supervisor at a day camp. I had never supervised anybody in my life. See if this sounds familiar to any of you out there, because I think we've all had similar experiences. Oh, we're going to help you out. Oh, we're going to give you the tools. Oh, and they didn't. And she failed miserably. And 3/4 of the way through the summer, they removed her from the position, gave her a less than satisfactory review, told her you don't belong in management, whole 9 yards, and that stuck with her. Okay? Well, it just so happened that she had an opportunity in a completely different field about a week ago, 10 years later. And she came to me and she said, John, here's the problem. This bad experience I had 10 years ago is still stuck in my head. And I said, well, you called me because you wanted an alternative approach, right? And she said, yeah. I said, I don't think that was a bad experience. She said, why? And I said, because she went on to tell me that the position she currently had, that she was working in, she had actually kind of gone from the bottom to being an hourly manager trainer. And she told me the one thing she made sure she did is the people her company hired, she made sure they got training, she made sure they got development, she made sure that there was that healing love there. Okay? So I looked at her and I said to her, so do you really think what happened to you 10 years ago was a bad experience? And she said, well, you know, when you put it that way, I guess it wasn't. I said, so you're taking that with you and you're going into this interview? And I said, if it were me, I'd share a little bit of that with somebody. You got to dig for positives sometimes. You know, I'm fond of telling the story Zig Ziglar shared about the two little boys that ran downstairs on Christmas morning, raced into the great family room, huge tall tree, fire crackling, and underneath the tree was a pile of horse manure. One little boy flopped himself down on the couch and says, "This is what we get for Christmas?" And the other little boy was throwing the manure up in the air going, "There's got to be a pony under here somewhere." We got to look for that pony. There's no guarantees. Good news is, young lady called me a day later or so, had the interview, offered her the job. Very happy. She's doing what she wants to do. We don't tell people, or we don't honor people enough to suggest to them that they're worth all the effort they put into themselves. And the third thing really is that you deserve to be successful. I had a friend out on the East Coast that sent me a little button that says you have to be your #1 client.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, wouldn't this be an amazing world if everybody thought that way?
Mm.
When you get up in the morning, after you thank the good Lord that your feet hit the ground, you get to be my age, that everything works right, okay? You begin to think, what am I going to do today? How am I going to be my #1 client? And you know, friends, I'm going to tell you something. You may disagree with what I'm about to say, but I've come to see some wisdom in it. A little bit of selfishness goes a long way. I am all for helping. I am all for caring. I am all for healing. But, you know, sometimes you have to take a step back and you have to realize that God, the universe, whatever you perceive that higher power to be, may not want you involved in there. Because sometimes we can get into the thing where we're going to do way too much for other people at our own expense. And then you wake up one morning and it's kind of that, bleh, okay? You're not motivated. The whole world looks one-dimensional to you. That's when you have to become your own client. And that's where you have to fall back on, I deserve success in my life. It's a birthright, okay? Now, you got to work at it. And unfortunately, what I think has happened in a lot of our cultures today is it's almost become, well, I'm entitled to success. No, you're not. You deserve it when you work for it. I've been watching Ken Burns' series on the Roosevelt family on public broadcasting the last week, and I really like something they quoted Theodore Roosevelt as saying. He said, I believe that everyone should have an equal chance, and then it's up to them. Now, that'd really be nice if we were all about 5'6", weighed 120 pounds, had a full head of hair, and we all looked alike, and we all had the same interests, but we don't, and that's why we need one another. I think the biggest issue we face today is that when you strip away all the masks that we wear and you come down to it, what I feel keeps people from being successful is deep down inside at 2:30 in the morning when they wake up and can't sleep, they don't believe they deserve it. And that's because we spend so much time regurgitating the past. We keep looking at it and okay, well, who has not goofed up on a regular basis? I never forget, about 7 or 8 years ago, I had a client call me, and he was getting ready to promote a gentleman who had hung in there for 30 years. He was 55 years old, and he was finally going to be placed in charge of a facility. And I said, well, what's wrong? And he said, John, I don't know. This guy has everything I need. I trust him. I'm going to see him 2 or 3 times a year. I'm 500 miles away from him. I don't get it. Okay. So I met this gentleman, and we sat in a restaurant in West Virginia, and we had lunch. And I said, so Carl, what's the deal here? And he said, you know, John, all I keep thinking about is everything I screwed up over the last 30-some years and why Tom would want to put me in this job. So you think you're alone? But, you know, friends, I'm going to tell you, sometimes saying that, because how many times have you said that to friends, kids, spouses, partners? How many times have you said, you think you're the only one that's ever screwed up? And it's really not had a lot of impact. So what I did is I stood up in the middle of the restaurant and I took a spoon. I leaned over to my water glass and banged it. And there were about 40 people in the restaurant. I said, excuse me, would everybody in this room who's never just messed up royally please stand up? Okay? And all these people started laughing, and I looked at Carl and I said, well, there you go. You got a lot of company. Okay? I said, don't you think it's awfully arrogant to think you're the only person that's ever made a mistake in your life? The late actor Peter Boyle said that regretting the past is a waste of spirit. See, you've been given a gift, and I've been given a gift. And the really neat thing is we choose how to share that gift with the world on a day-to-day basis. But it's kind of like, and this is the best way for me to understand it, it's kind of like the spirit that flows within us flows through a great big concrete pipe that's maybe about 15 inches in diameter. And when that concrete pipe is full, that spirit, that energy, that love, that vitality, that balance all flows through there unfettered. But then we start to think, you know, when I was in high school I did, and my mom said, and my dad did, and then I went to work, and oh my God, if these people knew that I did, and we start blocking the pipe off. And now that flow of spirit just gets a little weaker and weaker. Yeah, the next thing you know, you wake up one morning and you think, oh, well, what the heck? You kind of, ain't it a shame? Ain't it a shame? And so we project what's inside ourselves out onto the rest of the world. Well, it's the world's fault. If it weren't for the Democrats, Republicans, Independents, Libertarians, I mean, pick one. If it weren't for my wife, if it weren't for my husband, if it weren't for those damn kids of mine, if it weren't for my next door neighbor. Okay? And that's because that flow of spirit isn't there to sustain us. So it needs to be our full-time job. So you can do anything you want. Notice I said want. You can do anything you want to do as long as that energy is in balance and courses through you. Now, I'm 61 years old, and I kind of grew up in a very traditional environment, especially in my work environment, and we don't talk like this in business and industry, but we should. But we should. Okay? Because honest to God, if I could convince 5 CEOs of major corporations that if you allowed your people to meditate for 10 minutes a day, you would probably save yourself a whole lot of money in negative benefit allotment. And what I mean by that is paying for illnesses that are caused by stress, and those sorts of things. If we allowed people to examine holistic balance in their lives, we'd be a much better society. We don't treat people like they deserve to be successful, because misery loves company. If I can find something wrong with you, the little pinprick on you makes me feel better about the perceived gash on me. Now, if you take those three things I talked about, you deserve to be successful, you're worth all the effort you put into yourself, and you are who you hang around with, you allow that spirit of love to flow through you, just imagine what you can accomplish. And look, I'm going to tell you something. I'm average intelligence, and I'll admit I'm good looking. I don't have 50,000 different degrees. I've led a pretty normal life, nothing extraordinary. What I've been exposed to, I've sought out myself to help myself grow and develop. It's hard work, but it can be done. The other thing that happens to us is that I think we get discouraged very easily, and we shouldn't. One of my all-time favorite historical heroes is Winston Churchill. And Churchill once said, when you're going through hell, just keep going. You don't know how much that sustains me some days. I have a mother, 84 years old, who's in the just about final throes of Alzheimer's disease. And it just tears your heart out to sit and watch her deteriorate. This was a woman who was an artist, who did ceramics, who there wasn't anything in that genre my mother couldn't do. Right? And it weighs you down, and it can become very easy to use that as an excuse to stop growing, to stop loving, to stop helping heal. Are there days I want to? Yeah. And look, you know, we could go around the virtual table here, and everybody could tell a little bit of their story, and all of it would be valid. We share that in common. If this stuff was easy, anybody could do it. You're here tonight you're here tonight for one reason. You're here tonight to sustain the spirit that's inside of you, and you're here to help grow and support other people. You're like those hands on the screen. When I did that picture, that was one of those, I found a picture and then went into PowerPoint and did that, because I'm one of those folks that I'm a creature of habit. I get up in the morning, I meditate, I exercise, and that line came to me, give your healing love to someone who needs it today. It's the most precious gift you can give. It's why I'm here with you tonight. I don't have any real great insight to offer you. I don't have any real, you ain't heard nothing from me so far tonight that's, oh my God, I didn't realize that. But what I can do, okay, is I can be here to support you. I can be here to share what's inside of me. But see, I can't share that with you unless that pipe's as open as it can be. If I'd run upstairs and get my wife, she can tell you how imperfect I am. I mean, don't get me wrong, okay? There's not a movement to canonize me for sainthood. I am a normal person, kind of just like you are, and I have normal challenges, kind of just like you do. And so I have to challenge myself. If you look at the motto I have for my consulting coaching company, it says that I help good people become better. And I'm going to tell you, it took me a long time to come up with that. And I was challenged by a friend of mine to do so. And, you know, one of the experiences I would have over and over again is someone would hire me as a coach. And they'd call me to have me come into their office, or I had a father hire me to coach his daughter about 6 months ago. And bring me into the room. This is John Jerkowitz, and John's going to help you improve yourself. Okay? Well, I don't know about you, but, you know, that's kind of like how you start a sentence with, now, Linda, don't take this personally. Yeah, baloney. Okay, baloney. All right, the minute you tell me, the moment you criticize me, there's no such thing as objective criticism. There's no such thing as impersonal criticism, because it may come with the best of intentions from the speaker, But when you and I take it, I don't know about you, but with me, I'm plotting your demise 5 sentences into it. How dare you? Right. So I would see somebody sitting in a chair, and their boss or their parent or a concerned friend would say, I've hired John to work with you to help you improve. And, you know, it's kind of like pulling the plug on one of those blow-up animals. You can just see them. And I don't know if you guys have ever gone through this, but I have. Oh, my God, what does he think of me? There's something wrong with me. So one day I was sitting in a restaurant with a friend, and suddenly it hit me. What I do is I help good people become better. See, satisfaction's okay, just as long as you don't stay there. Well, I'm satisfied where I'm at, John. Oh, how long have you been satisfied? Oh, about 45 years now. Are you happy? Well, you know, you can't have everything, John, but I'm satisfied. Okay? And if you live with satisfaction, eventually it's not going to feed you. I know. I spent a better part of my life trying to do that. Somehow, some way, shape, or form, we got to tap into happy. But if I begin with the premise, if with any one of you, if I was to sit down in front of you, say, hey, we're going to spend an hour together today, and you say, well, what are we going to do, John? So I'm going to give you a gift. You're a good person, and I'm going to help you become better. First thing you're going to say is, maybe I need to take this guy home to race. He ain't too bad. Okay? Because I have recognized and acknowledged in you what I recognize and acknowledge in me. And if you're here tonight, that means that's what you're interested in. That means that's what you want in your life. And you know it's hard work. Look, I don't bounce out of bed every morning with a smile on my face and a song in my heart. But one thing I do is I do say thank you that I got out of bed before my head hits the pillow at night. I learned this from my 9-year-old granddaughter, and going to share. I will share a little secret to success with you guys here in a few minutes. But my 9-year-old granddaughter Ava said to me one day, she said, Pappy, you know what I heard on TV? I said, what's that, honey? She said, do you know if you want to be successful, the last thing you think about before you go to sleep is the first thing you'll think about when you wake up in the morning. So you should think good stuff about getting the stuff you want. And then she shoved the catalog for the American Girl doll in front of me. But she's 9 going on 40, okay? But, you know, I tried that, and as corny as it sounds, it's true. When you sit there and you think about something real positive, something that's going to help your success, and that's the last thing before you close your eyes, it'll be the first thing you think about in the morning. And I don't know about you, but I kind of like to get out of bed with something to look forward to. How do you capture that? I'm going to give you one thing I do. I learned it from a friend about 15, 20 years ago. I'm 60 years old. I have friends that are 40, 30, 20, and 10 years younger than I am. I have a mix of people. I have some close friends who are in their mid to late 20s, both male and female. And what they do is they keep my mind from putting that closed for business sign in front of it. I'll always agree with them. Sometimes I got to struggle with their perspective. So wherever you're at in your life, I would challenge you. I challenge you to say, hang around with some people much younger than you are. Hang around with some people much older than you are. They're going to give you a wonderful perspective. One of the slides, and I'm going to look for this here, and if I mess all this up, just forgive me, okay? One of the slides that I love is this one here. Okay, John. And it says, you start to look like what you believe. It's a song from a band called Switchfoot, who are in San Diego, California, I believe. And a young friend of mine said, hey, you got to listen to this on iTunes. And when I did, I downloaded the album. But I listen to this song every morning, okay? And the title of the song is The World You Want. And it simply starts by, you can make the world you want every day you're alive, and when you do, you start to look like what you believe. There's some mornings I look in the mirror and think, holy cow, the world's going to end. But what a challenge. What a challenge. If I walk through the course of my day thinking, how can I look like what I believe? I'm sure you've worked with people who have carried the woes of the world on their shoulders, known people who have been like that, that once you got to know them and start to unpeel the fruit, so to speak, that you find this wonderful, beautiful person inside. On top of being really good looking, I read minds. And I know that you've probably done the same thing I have. You've probably sat with your little bucket of pity from time to time, and I've said to myself, boy, you know, I invest all this time on other people, and who invests any time on me, and blah, blah, blah. Oh, ain't it a shame? Ain't it a shame? And that's when you start getting satisfied. If you want to do radical surgery on yourself, take out the blackest, darkest magic marker you can find and just delete satisfied from your vocabulary everywhere you are. Don't allow other people to use the word in front of you. I'm satisfied with the way things are. That means I'm not going to grow. To me, that's successful. So what I do isn't really a job, it's the way I live. You know, people say to me, is that all you ever talk about is what you do? Well, then, you know, it's kind of like you cut my heart out. Because what I do is I help good people become better, and sometimes that just simply means taking a few minutes out of my day. I take a walk every morning when the weather's nice. And a couple of years ago, I switched my routes up so I don't get bored. And I used to walk by a bus stop, and there's a young lady, college age. And she was always waiting for the bus, and I'd walk past, and I'd say, good morning, how are you today? And she would say, I'm fine, I'm okay, how are you doing? Now, here's another thing that I believe, and I would challenge you to do. You can't give what you don't have. And sometimes that reservoir of happiness that's deep down inside of you, you got to reach way down there and grab it. You know, I make no apologies to you. I am a happy and positive person, and that's how I live my life. Yes, I have challenges, and occasionally I get grumpy and all that other stuff. But for the most part, I'm a happy and positive person. And that means you take risks. A girl could have picked up a stone and thrown it at me. Get away from me, old man. So every morning I'd walk by, and she'd be standing there. I'd say, hey, how are you? I'm great, you know. Finally, first week of August or so, I walked by and went by her, and I heard this, excuse me, sir. You know, that's when you know when you're getting old, when they start calling you sir. Okay. And I said, you know, it's instead of, hey, dude, it was, excuse me, sir. I said, yeah, and I thought I dropped something, and she goes, I wanted to thank you. And I said, for what? And she said, I've had a terrible summer. I'm not going to go into it. My work hours were really crazy. My car's been broke down all summer. I don't know how I'm going to get back to college. I've been taking the bus. My mom and dad have had some financial problems. I said, well, I'm sorry to hear that. And she said, no, you don't understand. You just smiling at me and saying good morning made the difference. Friends, I'm going to tell you, we all can't be Tony Robbins, and we're all not called to do that. Okay? We all can't be Dr. Bob Schuller. He's another one of my favorite people, even though he's dead. We all can't be Zig Ziglar. We can only be who we are. We are good people, and we're called to become better. And that's a real focus and challenge. But if you look around the virtual community you're sitting in this evening, that only happens when you give that love to one another, when you share that healing. I am really excited because I am working with a group, a live group of entrepreneurs right now, young people who are getting ready to start their own business. And it's a semi-canned program. I had to go through facilitator training for it and whatnot. But one of the first things they do each week, it's a 9-week program, they stand up and share their highs and lows. I'm getting my business together, and you know what? I found out this is going to cost $100,000 more than I thought. And the rest of the community sitting around the table says, hey, don't worry about it. I've been there. By the way, I got an uncle that might be able to help you. And when somebody has a high, but what we've conditioned ourselves to do and believe is we put walls up around ourselves. I'm getting my soapbox out here again. We put walls up around ourselves, and we won't let people in. And you know, if I don't catch myself, if I don't force myself sometimes, you can get real isolated. I'll read you just a little quote somebody shared with me because I wanted to. Everything you want is right outside your comfort zone.
Right.
And I a lady by the name of Suzanne Evans said that. I don't know if she was the first person to say it, but I happened to listen to a podcast and she was being interviewed and I wrote it down. She said, the universe chose you. It gives us pain. It gives us struggle. And when it does, find a way to triumph. And that's really life. I mean, that's why we're here. I have, since I've started living this way, I've met some absolutely amazing, wonderful people. And my kids are always fond of saying, gee, Dad, you own your own business. Are you rich? And I'll tell them, well, not in the way you think I might be rich. I'm rich in a way that every day I'm enriched because I got to spend the time I spent this evening with you guys. And that's the way I look at life. Look, I'm a realist. I'm 61 years old. I have less time left than more, but I kind of got a goal of about 30 more years, okay? Realistically, quality of life, 30 more years. Now, that requires exercise and diet and all those other things, but I'm going to tell you what it requires more than anything else. It requires the proper mindset. When Linda introduced me, she said, I've got 40 years experience in a host of other things, operations, human resource management, training and development, and I have seen people with what appeared to be very limited personal resources and the right attitude just soar and succeed the way they wanted to. And see, once I become successful, then I become that role model for other people. It ain't easy. By no stretch of the imagination, it isn't easy. But, you know, it's like the Frank Capra movie said years ago, it is a wonderful, wonderful life. I'm going to shut up now, Linda.
John, that was so beautiful, so inspiring.
Oh, thank you.
I love it. You know, when somebody speaks and they're like-minded and there's a real connection, I mean, there's nothing better than that. You know, I mean, you just are so clear, and I love your stories and inspiring. You know, people our age, because I'm 60, aren't supposed to think these things. You know, we come from a different way, but, you know, we've grown and we're evolving, and it's so important, you know, that we help people see a lot of these things in the best way is by example, isn't it?
Well, you know, Linda, the people who are really going to need our help are the people that they call the millennials. And I'll tell you why. A lot of us got wiped out in 2008 when the banks all went crazy. And
Right.
talking to people who do a lot of hiring in big corporations, they're telling these younger people, you can't go anywhere till those people, those boomers retire. And now in a lot of cases, that retirement age has been pushed forward 5 to 10 years.
Yeah,
Those folks down there in their 20s are really going to need our love and support.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. Well, thank you again, John. Now, I'm looking at names here of people that are here, and I notice that there are people that come all the time. Not everybody, but I notice most of the names of people that continue to come here. Because of what John said about helping people, supporting each other, then we should get to know each other pretty well if we come here every single Tuesday night. So I'm going to challenge you guys to know each other better by telling us what you thought about tonight. What are your thoughts about what John said? You can give, for instance, you can give an idea or anything that you want to, just so that because, we're all coming at the same time, we should get to know each other better. So I'm going to unmute you, and please let me know if you have a question or you have a comment.
You're reverbing, Linda.
I am?
You were. Now you're not.
Okay.
All right.
Hey, is there anybody that wants to? Go ahead.
This is Barbara. Yeah, I was listening to the story where you were talking about looking in the past, and I just recently listened to an audio by a monk who told the story about how, well, the whole talk was about depression and how negative thinking will cause depression. And then he talked about 2 chicken farmers. And the 2 chicken farmers, both of them had 2 baskets in their chicken cages, and one basket was filled with chicken dung, and the other basket was filled with eggs. Mm-hmm. And one farmer went in the house and brought the basket of dung in, and it smelled really bad, but that's what he did. And the other farmer brought in the basket of eggs and made an omelet and then took the rest to the market and sold them. And so the moral of that story is, don't bring your old shit, if you will, don't bring your old shit into the present, right? Because that's what the guy with the basket that brought in the old stuff was, because he was bringing and hanging on to the old stuff.
That's good. That's priceless.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's, I mean, it's a great way to look at it. We're bringing a basket of crap with us every time we go to the past, start talking and dredging it up, talking about it, whatever. Let's get that out of the house, bring in those fresh eggs, and let's celebrate.
Yeah. Thanks, Barb. Diane has her hand up.
Yeah.
Hi, Diane.
Hi, how are you?
Great. How are you?
Wonderful, thank you. John, thank you for a great presentation, encouragement, and and just speaking from the heart. One of my friends once said that he was lamenting over his way of being, and his coach said to him, you can either play full out or die with your potential intact. And I always think about that when I want to hesitate, and so I remember that, and I'm like, okay, do we want to play full out here, or just want to be satisfied, to your words? But I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. And thank you for your kind words too.
You're welcome.
You know what, Diane, but the point is, are we really satisfied if we don't play full out? That's the thing. Hello?
Well,
hello?
Hi. I don't know if we're really satisfied. We might tell ourselves we're satisfied because, well, many reasons. One, I know for myself sometimes is I don't know if I want to do the work all the time.
Yeah.
You know, the question is, what am I willing to do, and how much of it am I willing to do to get what I want? And so there are days that, you know, I'll play full out or go above and beyond, and then there are days that I might just say, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's called satisfaction or just not willing to do what it takes sometimes, whatever the reasons
Maybe
are.
it's called wisdom.
Unmuted.
Yeah, could be wisdom. The internal voice, listening to the internal voice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Diane. I have another hand up. Let's see. Winnie. Hi, Winnie.
Hi. Thanks, John. One of the quotes that I saw, I love, and it just resonates with me and with your message, is that focus on blessing others, not impressing them. Kindness is far more powerful than competition. And it's just like everything you said is just out of that quote for me. And one thing that resonates with me also is what you said, you know, to support and share what you know. And you're a normal person and you have challenges and things, because sometimes we see and we have this image about people and think, oh, they never made mistake, they just got and became so powerful and they have no issues. And just to remind myself that we all are human, and the fact that you're normal and you have challenges, but best of all, after everything, you love yourself and you don't apologize for living the life that you live. And that is so much powerful to me. Thank you for the reminder.
You're welcome. You're quite welcome.
Okay, anybody else?
Well, there's some comments in the
James.
chat box, and let's see. Joanne has a question. It's a coaching question, so I'm sure she'll get lots of feedback. So it's great when you ask a question to a group, because a group of people will come up with so many ideas. You'll have a lot to choose from, which is wonderful. And your question is, any thoughts on coaching someone who has a fear of success?
Mm.
That's everyone I meet.
Yeah, right.
Hi, this is James. Can you hear
Hi,
me?
James.
Hi, James. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Hi. Several things. You know, John, when you were talking, after about 10 minutes, this old saying popped in my head. The saying, "Physician, heal thyself." And is that what you meant to convey tonight? That yes, we strive to help other people with their issues, but as coaches, we have issues also that we need to fix. Maybe before we try to fix other people's issues, but certainly, you know, within the same time frame. But also, just because you have issues too doesn't mean that you can't help other people.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Go ahead.
There's a beautiful term, and it's not mine. It goes back to the 70s, and it was by a French-Belgian priest, Father Henri Nouwen, and he wrote a book called The Wounded Healer. Right.
Okay.
And
I think I heard of that.
Yeah, and it's a very powerful book. It's a short book, but I guess you're right. I think we have to be our number one client. We have to work on us because we can't give what we don't have.
Right. Right. And also, we can't let our condition negatively influence what we need to do to help other people also, what we need to do to coach other people.
Yeah.
So that means we have to sort of self-diagnose or at least have our own coach,
Yeah.
to work our own demons out, while we're trying to help other people.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I have a quick story about that.
Wow.
Early on when I was teaching, there was a priest in my class. And he said, we went on and on with the class. And then all of a sudden in one part of the class, he said, Linda, I have to ask you or tell you something. He said, whenever I have women that I'm coaching or helping, when they cry, I can't stand it. I just can't stand it. I want them to stop. And that answers the question so well, because I said to him, have you ever cried? And he said, well, maybe at, a funeral, but not really.
Mm-hmm.
So that says it all right there. If you don't know what the feelings or emotions are that can cause you to cry, if you haven't shared them or experienced them, then you really don't know what it feels like to have those emotions. And he got that, and I eventually found out that he decided to do a lot of his own work too. So it's not saying that you can't be a coach, that you won't be a good coach. It just is really important, though, to look at yourself for those reasons.
Yeah.
Mm.
Those are some great thoughts. Elena had a couple thoughts that she's given me permission to share with the group, and she says, gratitude is the very best attitude, and it doesn't matter the circumstances, because gratitude can always be found. And that's something that she passes along to her clients. And I believe that gratitude is, well, I feel gratitude every day about my life and everything that's happening in my life. I'm deeply grateful. And it is a great place to be. And I think, once you start practicing gratitude in every moment, it just becomes very natural to find yourself in a grateful moment frequently. So I believe I believe it is a very best attitude is one of gratitude. Thank you, Alina, for sharing that.
Mm.
Lena also had a comment for Joanne regarding the fear of success. She says, fear of success is really an anxiety disorder that needs to be addressed perhaps by a licensed therapist. An intake form would be where to start for this client. And I'm not sure what kind of an intake form that you mean there, Elena. If you want to elaborate, that would be great. For me, I think I would have them, Joanne, I would have them go through the state of personal power, because what we do in that, when we in the state of personal power, we're envisioning ourselves at our very best, and he might have to go back in his memory to find a time when he felt successful. Something must have knocked him down after his success, and he must have gotten associated with guilt, fear, or shame. But once they get into that state where he's remembering himself being in that empowered state, he can recall what it felt like and all of the good things about being successful. And then he'll have an easier time stepping into it in his everyday life. If he can step into it in his mind's eye, he'll be able to repeat that in the world. Anyway, that's just my thoughts on it.
Thanks, Barb. George has his hand up.
All right.
Hi, my friend. Hi, George.
George, you're self-muted. You'll need to unmute.
Yeah.
There we go. Hey, George. I don't know if your microphone is muted, but we still can't hear you. I can see that you unmuted clicked by your name, but if your physical microphone has a mute button on it, it might still be muted, or the microphone might not be working. Okay, so Alina says she uses an intake form for people, and she said it could be called something else too, but she gets to know the person that's coming to her for coaching by using an intake form. I know a lot of coaches do that. Some of them have it even posted on their website, so you do an intake form before you get started with them. So, okay, George, let's see if we can hear you now. Still can't hear George. So maybe you want to use the chat box, George, so we can get your comment. And we'd love to have it. We'd love to hear your share. So we're not going to mute you from this side, but you'll need to figure out why your microphone's not working on your side. Or go ahead and share in the chat box. Okay. Anybody else have anything they'd like to share about the topic tonight? You can stick your hand up in the control panel to indicate you want to talk.
This is Winnie.
Hi, Winnie.
Hey, John, is there any books or stuff you can recommend? I know you talked about the Wounded Healer.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I used that book in seminary and I loved it. But is there another book or anything, or what's your website, or I'd like to know more about you?
Oh, God love you. You could buy my book. It's only 99 cents on Amazon.
Absolutely. I like to buy it.
So
it's called
will you share your information with everybody, John?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. The book is called These Three Things, and it's the number 3. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And it's on Amazon. It costs 99 cents.
Okay.
I would be grateful if you bought it, and I would even be more grateful if you wrote a review after you bought it, because Amazon publicizes self-published books based on sales and reviews. And I wrote this book. It's kind of an interesting story. I had been writing this book for a long time. And I have a project manager up there in Big Bear, California I work with periodically. And we were talking on a Google Hangout one night, and she said to me, "When are you going to publish that book?" And it was kind of one of those, yeah, sort of thing. And she said, "I'll tell you what, why don't you do this? Give yourself a deadline. When can you have that thing ready to go?" John, this ain't rocket science. Okay? So I said, "I'll tell you what, I'm 2 weeks." And, you know, I believe Barbara said a few minutes ago about that tremendous sense of satisfaction you get from gratitude. I got it all together, edited it, put it out there, and just felt this tremendous sense of satisfaction when I did it. It was also something I needed to do, because if you buy the book, it's very personal and it's very vulnerable. And I start off by talking about the fact that I'm a storyteller. That's what I do well. This book is a series of stories that make points. They're real life stories. They're people I know, people that I have known. And I will tell you another book that I have just become enamored with, and it's an older book, and I guess 2001 is old now, okay? But it's called The Tipping Point.
Well, I have that.
By Malcolm Gladwell, and that has almost become my second Bible.
Wow.
Because he talks a lot about basically 3 ways we get things done, and that each of us has our own defined characteristic, and that I shouldn't try to be Linda and Linda shouldn't try to be me. And as a matter of fact, I recommend that book to a lot of people. Books to me are a matter of personal preference. I have never been one to run out and buy the latest and greatest. I still have a library card. I'm the kind of guy that'll spend a rainy Saturday afternoon in the library and pick out things that will, I think, will enhance me personally. If you want to contact me, you can get to my website two ways. The easiest way is mywalkonwater.com. That will take you to the website. The other one is jerkowitzconsulting.com, and that means I'd have to spell my last name for you. But you can get to mywalkonwater.com. Will take you to my website. If you'd like to get my newsletter, there's a page for you to sign up to get my newsletter. If you'd like to get to know me better, say, hey, John, shoot me an email. I'd love to talk with you. I spend a lot of time over at Google+, and I do a number of different hangouts. I do a weekly hangout at Google+ called the Career Corner, where I talk about all different aspects of people's careers. And as a matter of fact, sometime in November, I am planning to do a hangout on air with coaches. I want to take 4 or 5 coaches in the film strip with me and let them talk to the public at large about what coaching means to them, because boy, are there a lot of misconceptions about what coaches do.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, is there ever.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it until I was on a blog the other day and I was reading what people were saying that coaching was. I was like, oh my gosh, they were so far off. My jaw dropped. I couldn't believe what I was reading. So yeah, it's very true.
True.
Hey, John, I let you
I-
know that, I'm sorry, but it's kind of
Go ahead.
something nice. Mitch Habish had to leave, and he said, I must leave to participate in another teleconference. My thanks to John. He was frequently speaking directly to me.
Oh.
Like, you really touched home with him. And he said, please tell him I'll be buying his book. Best to you all until next time, Mitch.
Thank you.
Sorry,
That you raised something there, and I am a very spiritual person, and people say, what does that mean? As a matter of fact, that's probably the strongest connection I had with Linda, was through the spiritual group. She certified me as a life coach, but I think I got to know her so much better in a group of what was it, Linda, about 8 or 10 coaches?
About 8 people, a spiritual group. Yes, it was wonderful.
Yeah. And we met for an hour and a half to 2 hours every week. But I'll tell you a story, and can't remember who asked the question about being afraid of success. And I don't know if Linda will remember this or not, but we got to the last week, and everybody was supposed to take 15 to 20 minutes to talk about everybody else in the group and how what they learned from them in the whole 9 yards. And I'm sitting there, and thank God I wasn't first because I was shaken. But one of the things I had told my wife throughout the course of this group meeting was every week we get together, and there were some, from my perspective, some really high-powered people in there. Okay?
Yeah.
And I'm sitting and listening to them, and I'm going, holy crap. Okay? I mean, these people are like out there really saving the world. Right? And I ain't doing a damn thing. And I was really afraid of what they were going to say about me. It was kind of like, well, you're the guy we let in here because we got to have one of you, okay? But I was really surprised and touched by their insight on what I brought to the table. And I guess I tell you that story because I encourage you to do the same thing to other people that someone did to me, that said, here, you did this real well and you do this real well. And I sat back after we got off that call and I reflected for about an hour and I thought, yeah, they're right. My grandpa used to say that it ain't bragging if you're telling the truth.
Yeah.
Right? If you do something well, let the world know about it.
I absolutely remember that, John, and I remember talking to you after, and you're telling me about it, and I was so surprised at what you had thought, how nervous you are about it. Yeah.
And you know what's really cool about that group? I stay in touch with you. I stay in touch with Kat and a few other people, okay?
Yeah.
Albeit on Facebook and emails back and forth. But I think when you build a bond with people, that bond really sticks.
I think so, too. Yes, definitely.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. Well, I want to say thank you for everybody for your participation. It's been so nice to hear from other members of our group, and very, very exciting about that. So I look forward to next week. Who's coming next week, Linda?
Oh,
I am.
That's right. Linda Fred's coming next week.
All right. Woo!
Linda, are you coming next week?
Absolutely.
John, Linda, and Barbara, I love you all.
I love you too. Well, come
Thank
next
you.
week. We're going to have Walt Shepardson, and he's going to speak about making friends with your money.
Okay.
Oh.
I'm dragging
First
my
you
husband.
have to have some.
Me too.
Oh.
John, you will be hearing from me.
Thank you very much, and I really enjoyed being with you guys tonight. You're a great group of folks. I can just tell.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you again, John. So inspiring.
You're welcome.
Everyone has a different style, and the way you tell stories to make points is my favorite. I like to hear examples of true stories and then get the point from that. So wonderful.
Thank you. Well, buy the book because it's all full of stories.
I'm going.
Awesome.
John, I just bought your book.
Yeah, there's another 99 cents in the coffer.
Right. I did a little multitasking while you were talking.
Yeah, the funny thing is I did not write the easiest part about writing a book is writing the book. That's the easiest part. Okay.
I like
You
that.
get into all this marketing and everything else, and it's like I need about $100,000 to hire people to do this. So I put it out there for what it was because I looked at it as it being an opportunity to share with people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have to be sensitive to the times we live in. There's a lot of books on Amazon I see for $16, $17, $18, $19 that I think it'd be a better investment of my money to put it somewhere else. The nice marketing tool I have is just about everybody can afford 99 cents. So,
Yep.
so there you go. And please share it with your friends.
Okay.
Yes, definitely.
All righty.
Okay, good night.
Thanks so much,
Night.
John.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Good night.